Funny about that. You know who was asking about you the other day? Who's that? Nobody.
We talking about sports, get ball.
What it do, baby? Yeah.
What it do, you number one podcast listeners? We are back with a brand new episode of the number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee. I am your host, Premal Bhatt, and today I am joined by my big bro, Vish. Vish, welcome back.
Yo, what up? Glad to be back.
Yeah, so we're ramping up for the football season, and I thought it'd be a great idea to do kind of a fantasy football focused podcast. I feel like
I love it.
Podcast listeners are fantasy football players, one league or multiple leagues. So I thought this would be a little fun preview, and you are my go-to for fantasy advice myself. So I figured no better person to have on here than you.
I know. Hopefully I can get out of the rut I've been in and start to win and take my advice on some of this shit. But
easy to second guess.
It is easy.
Number one podcast listeners, I think we have a fun one for you. I'm going to keep it mostly to the preview angle, division by division. We did this last year around this time, and it went over pretty well. So I kind of like that function of covering the whole league that way. We'll try to touch at least each team at some point, and if they're not being talked about, you're probably like the New Orleans Saints or something. Anyway, all due respect though. Without further ado, I got a couple quick fams to get us dip our toes in the water here, so to speak. Vish, meant to be a little bit of a rapid fire, but wanted to get your quick take on it. So without further ado, let's start with fam or not. And first up, Vish, fam or not, dynasty / keeper leagues. We for them?
Yeah, I'm for them. I think it's a lot harder to strategize around these types, and you don't have the little luck of the draw, if you will. And they are starting to become more and more common. I think when we looked at it probably a few years ago, they were just starting to come around. But I feel like at least one person that I know is in either a dynasty or a keeper or a mix of both type of things. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a fam. I was hesitant for starting them because they're so involved. And the part that I think I'm a nod to is you lose the ability to really have, like, I don't know, water cooler talk about fantasy football when you're in a dynasty league, unless it's with people in your league. Because each one has like slightly different rules or little nuances to their league. It becomes hard to describe it. So that's the part I do miss a little when you're talking to someone who's not in the league. People joke about not caring what your fantasy football team looks like, but I tend to disagree with that concept. I love talking fantasy football with someone, but I do tend to like not be able to hold interest if I don't get how your league functions. So
yeah,
that's my one little.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of what you kind of said before. I give zero shits about your fantasy football league and how you did this. It's different. I love talking like strategy. I will. So if people give me like trade ideas or whatever, I'm all for that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, I don't really care if your bench player outscored someone that you put in. It means nothing to me. But I do get it. I actually do get a little bit more interested if they do have a dynasty type of league or those random one-offs. So
the part I love about dynasty and keeper leagues is it naturally gets more buy-in from people in the league. So you're not going to have a casual person in a dynasty league. They're not going to last very long. So that part I like, because I think it gets kind of lame if someone loses interest in fantasy football. It makes it kind of not fun if you're not checking your team or something like that, and that's more likely to happen in a redraft. So,
and I think that ultimately the harder part of this is, if you come in, not from the very beginning of that dynasty or keeper league, which makes it tough, but then you start to pick it up. So if the league actually has some oomph behind it, which most leagues do, they have hey, here's like a grace period type of thing. So it ends up working out, but it is fun because usually the dynasty or keeper leagues that you're with are not with random people or people that you don't really know everyone in the league for, and those are probably rare, but for the most part you end up knowing or you can have shit talk that actually goes through, and we won't even get into. I don't think Ping listens to this, or even Bendy. We'll see if Bendy listens to this part. But the Amon-Ra St. Brown in one of our leagues. So there's a shout out for one of the leagues that we're in.
Deep cut. All right, number one podcast listeners. Speaking of dynasties, let's talk about Prem Brulee and Magic Mind together. As you all know, number one podcast listeners, I've been talking about Magic Mind for months now. I love that they have clean ingredients. I love that it's a boost of energy, of clean energy that can help you have a little less caffeine in the day, lead to less crashes during your, midday tendency to lose some energy. The other thing I love about Magic Mind is their promise to their customers. You can tell they truly stand behind their product, and they do so by doing rigorous testing of every ingredient, and they are willing to provide certificates of analysis for all the ingredients that they use. You can request them from them by sending an email to their account, hello@magicmind.co. They inspect every bottle by hand and test every batch they produce in their lab. So I love someone who takes their product serious, because how can you expect for consumers to take it serious if the company itself isn't themselves? So their goal to make the best beverage on the planet for creators is something they hold true to. You might have seen ads definitely seen them on my podcast, but definitely with other creators as well. It's because people use it and believe in the product. So, and they're so confident that you will like their product that they offer money back guarantees, 100% refunds, no questions asked. They won't ask for the remaining bottles back. I've been telling you number one podcast listeners about it for months, but the proof is in the fact that I use it myself, recommended it to family and friends, sent them home with little gift packs when I have bottles here just to get their take on it, or when I've had conversations organically about how much caffeine that they're consuming during the day, or need that midday pick-me-up. So I wouldn't co-sign something if I didn't believe its impact. I've tested it myself. I need less caffeine throughout the day. It sustains my energy in a clean way, as I've tried to improve my health over the years. So, number one podcast listeners, I always take care of you guys. You can still get 20% off a one-time purchase, or up to 48% off your subscriptions by going to magicmind.com/prem. That's magicmind.com/PREM. When prompted, enter the code PREM20. That's PREM, the number 2, the number 0. And that gets you up to 48% off. If I were you, I would stock up on that subscription so it comes right to your door and you don't even have to think about it. It's easy to grab and go when you're on your way to work. So don't play yourselves. I think you won't if you place that order right away. The link. It's in the episode description. I just gave it to you. magicmind.com/prem. Enter the code PREM20, and I don't think you'll regret it. There's no other choice to make.
I got to co-sign that too. I think even as the fall months are hitting, we're talking about fantasy football here. The days are getting darker sooner and the sun's coming up later. And so that pick me up, that extra bit of energy. I know, Magic Mind worked even better for me in the winter months, just because it is kind of those dreary areas. So you need an extra pick me up. So instead of drinking an extra Diet Coke or an extra coffee, supplementing Magic Mind and not having to have that extra, fluids in you is super there, and it's cleaner too.
Yep, for sure. All right, Vish. There's no other choice to make besides Magic Mind, but a choice I want you to make is regarding this year's fantasy football drafts, the whole subject of this episode. Okay, this feels like the age-old question. Everybody does a draft order a different way, but wherever you wind up for this year's particular draft, are you a yeah fam to picking near the top, or are you a nah, and that means picking elsewhere is fine this year? Just to give you number one podcast listeners an idea, the top of the rankings have people like Jamar Chase and Saquon Barkley. But the trade-off is that you don't get to pick until the very end of round 2 typically. Or are you someone who in this year's draft prefers a later pick and you can get 2 of that area? So this is in the realm of Puka Nakua, Malik Neighbors, Christian McCaffrey, Achan from the Dolphins, or someone like Nico Collins on your Texans, Vish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fam, you're a fan of picking near the top if you can get one of those coveted slots, or nah, I'm good with being down in the order for the first round pick.
For me, I think thinking conventional stake model, obviously, for this, which I know, like, if you're Bill Simmons and Ringer fans, that they love the auction items as well. But I think I do prefer the top of the draft, especially this year. Rather get one of those elite players. It might be hard in this case for Chase or even Saquon Barkley to replicate their numbers from last year, as you had mentioned, especially if we're thinking, in a PPR or a half PPR model, which a lot of people are in. That's probably a little bit safer for this year in particular. And that could be really whichever way you go, as instead of trying to go down further, you aren't really relying on that elite player. You're almost swinging and hoping you kind of hit a home run on some of those other players. So,
yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny because I think your point about it's going to be hard for them to replicate their numbers makes me more of a nah if I have to answer that. I'm okay with not being a little further down the list, because I'm a law of averages, guys. Like, Jamar Chase's numbers were just so gaudy. Right. Saquon Barkley's numbers were just so gaudy that my feeling is that there's no way they can do that again, right? I'm sure they would love that level of doubt for more people to hear that, but I don't mind like the lower picks, whether it's the end of the round, first round, or even in the middle. There's some really, really productive players, even if you're stuck in the middle, which people tend to like the least. There's some really good players there, so I'm more of a nod to this one, I would say, in this particular year. But I get, like, you'd rather go down swinging with a better player. Otherwise, how can you really claim that you knew what you're doing? It's kind of a level of luck that's entering the fold.
Yeah, and there kind of always is. And I think, even if you look at analytics, depending on what format your league is in, I think 6, 7, 8 is usually pretty safe, just because you still get potentially your chance at an elite player if, the top picks end up reaching for something that's way out of left or right field, right? And on the back end, you still get a decent player, whereas you're not waiting so long until the end of the draft or end of the round, excuse me. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of what you kind of prefer. And, I'd rather go down swinging and say, oh, I drafted Christian McCaffrey last year and got fucked. And, that was the case for a lot of it, where consensus-wise, McCaffrey was number one almost across the board, and who knew what had transpired. So you kind of have a built-in excuse as well for that water cooler talk.
Yep. There we go. All right, number one podcast listeners, hopefully you enjoyed that. Just a little dipping of the fantasy football toe and in the fantasy football waters. But without further ado, let's hit your favorite portion, my favorite portion. Not always when I have to talk about a alleged team I'm a fan of, but let's hit that you played yourself.
I'm petty as hell. And I'm super petty.
Here we
Petty Le Pew.
go.
All right, number one podcast listeners, we have made it to You Played Yourself, and I told you last episode, hypothetically, if I did care about the Cowboys and talked a little bit about that, they're not going to get me this time. I know Jerry Jones talking crap about Micah Parsons' agent, not going to get me this time. Now,
You're great.
give it a couple weeks. You might get a rise out of me. Still hasn't happened yet. Allegedly, it hasn't happened. Never mind last episode. That was just a hypothetical. So, first up on You Played Yourself for me is the SEC finally going to a 9-game conference schedule. They decided, after years of people calling for it, to match what the Big Ten does and have 9 conference games instead of their current 8. They will start that in the 2026 season. Evidently, they are going to also focus on one of the out-of-conference games, one of their 3 being against the Power 4. And I believe they're going to have essentially, like, teams can have 3 protected games, and they're going to rotate the other conference games. So there's going to be essentially no divisions. So you'll see SEC teams at most play each other every 2 years. So that's the model they're going to go with. It's clearly to align better and compete and have more teams in contention for the college football playoffs, as it is inevitably a sign that it's going to expand some more from the 12 teams it's currently at. I believe it'll go to 16 here very soon. But you played yourself goes to the SEC finally doing it now. Another bonus, you played yourself to the JV football teams that the SEC schools pay to come get their butts whooped, because I guess they're not going to get that chance anymore. How long did they hang on to that little cupcake 4th out-of-conference game where they play some community college from the middle of nowhere? So poor them. You played yourself goes to the SEC. You know we take it every chance we can get, but I guess better late than never, but it's not going to stop me from sounding it, you know?
Petty alert, petty alert, petty alert.
And Vish, before I get you played yourself from you, I wanted a jersey related one. I don't know if there are any like jerseys, sports fashion people that care about jersey aesthetics, all that stuff, but if you do, I'm your guy for this. I'm issuing a you played yourself to throwback jerseys in the NFL. Listen, not every team needs to do a throwback. The Green Bay Packers doing their 1923 Acme Packers with hand-painted helmets to make their helmets look like they're leather falls in that category of unnecessary. Green Bay. No one is making you do this. Not every team needs to do a throwback. You know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers doing their creamsicle is one thing, but doing these uniforms from the 1920s when frickin' Iron Lung Lewis was playing for them, who the fuck cares? Who is this an ode to? They're like completely different colors. The design doesn't even look cool. There's nothing cool about it. Not every team needs to do a throwback. And this would be one of those scenarios. Traditional classic franchises with uniforms that will never change do not need even more boring plain throwbacks. Their uniforms are already plain, and people like them that way. I get it. You know, old school traditionalists love them that way. But they're, in essence, already a throwback that they're using. An already old jersey does not need to get older. This should be an opportunity where traditional franchises use a chance to do an alternate design, to go new school. Someone like the Packers or the Cowboys should do a new alternate design that they're only going to maybe wear once, but it appeals to a younger crowd that way. It doesn't make sense to go further back old. Unless it is a cool uniform, like the Seahawks just did it. Like I just mentioned, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You don't need to go older if your team's already ancient. Appeal to some young fans. That's my PSA.
Yeah, I completely co-sign on this. I mean, I think if you're going and you're doing a throwback like pre-Super Bowl era, like you really need to rethink it. And I think some of the logos that these teams have had, like even the Packers, or even to look at the Cowboys, like old school, you know, weird, kind of clip arty logos that they have, if they do something with that and still keep the color or make the old design and have an ode to whatever and change it up a little bit.
Put on a helmet.
Yeah, we're not
like a sticker, a different logo.
Yeah, we're not looking, like you said, for a leather connection or whatever stupid. It is. It's very silly. I mean, the Steelers the same thing when they have those like bumblebee uniforms, and
yes,
it is.
That's the other example that
it's gross. I mean,
if you like it so much, use it as your permanent uniform. Let's see if you actually like it that much.
Yeah. And
that's my challenge.
And most of these franchises also have like an alternate like logo. So like the Bears, for instance, you know, the classic C, it's a classic uniform, the navy and the orange, but they also have that bear logo that they can use or leverage and kind of create it differently instead of just being like, oh, we're going to have an orange colored uniform.
Yeah.
That's going to be awful to look at. So, and speaking of, I guess, orange, you know, and
nice.
The different helmets that exist and franchises that have some senses of logos. I want to have a "You played yourself" to the Cleveland Browns. I know I'm going to alienate a lot of our listeners that are Browns fans.
I dig it.
And I do not care.
Petty alert.
Right.
Petty alert.
So
Petty alert.
living in Northeast Ohio for the last 10 plus years, I should say, and even being an Ohioan my entire life, I just didn't realize how trash of a franchise the Browns truly are. And especially since they've come back, you know, after they moved overnight to Baltimore and they retained all their rights, blah, blah, blah. Their on-field is not nearly what I'm talking about, right? And so what I'm talking about is them as a franchise. So like many franchises that are looking for updated stadiums, they are going to be moving outside downtown Cleveland, for those that are not aware, and going to be moving to essentially a suburb of Cleveland, right? It's probably the same distance for most people that are traveling to Browns games, and it's a little bit more convenient. Those that are from Cleveland know that it's near the lake, and it's pretty obnoxious to get to. Neither here nor there. But because they're moving to a suburb, they have asked the state of Ohio to help build this stadium. So it's going to be a $2.4 billion stadium, park, facility, whatever it is. A quarter of it, so that's, you know, $600 million, just chump change to an owner, right, is going to be funded by the citizens of the state of Ohio. Now, you and I, you know, work in places where we see a lot of individuals who are struggling in many different areas. We've talked about it openly. You know, you and Thomas have talked about it as well in one of your more serious episodes, kind of outside of just taking care of yourself. And there are a lot of individuals that don't have the ability to take care of themselves from a mental or physical health perspective that are being kind of shoved to the corner because of this fucking team. And if you haven't heard, Bill Simmons, and we've referenced Bill Simmons a few times, I guess, or I have at least, just play the...
I believe that billionaires should pay for their own fucking football stadiums.
Gets right to the billionaires should pay for their fucking stadiums. I think everyone can co-sign this. If you own an NFL franchise, you are the elite of the elite, right? NBA has a great evaluation, but NFL franchises are next to, you know, almost next to God in terms of the money they get. The part that really sucks is that it's just a shame that there's so many people in our community in the state of Ohio that are going to be impacted by this fuckery, if you will. So not only do I hate the Browns, not only are they on the "you played yourself," but it's their owners, their franchise, what they stand for, a lot of the players that they select and give third, fourth chances to that shouldn't be getting third and fourth chances, let's be honest. Yeah. And what I'm saying is, not only should they be shameful for themselves, they should just get this fuck out of the state of Ohio.
Look, I stay petty, so I don't have to get petty.
Hell yeah.
And I just wanted to, I know we have a lot of listeners that are out of state that might not understand kind of those ramifications. Just
but everybody's dealt with the level of that from a franchise.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
100%,
like,
yeah.
No matter what city you're in, they always do what Bill Simmons just said.
Oh, 100%. So,
like, you have all the money in the world and you're trying to get the taxpayers to help you.
Yeah,
what sense does that make?
It's obnoxious. So,
love it. All right, that's a perfect segue into Am I Hatin? So, number one podcast listeners, you know what time it is. Our segment where we talk about statements that maybe clearly are hating, but it's a safe space anyway. And so, number one podcast listeners, my water bottle, Am I Hatin' from last episode, really struck a chord with Hydration Gang, a.k.a. Clear Piss Gang. Shout out Roche's name. That was a huge hit. Y'all are passionate about your water bottles. I got so many fun messages from people, despite me saying it wasn't personal, jokingly saying, oh, it's personal. So, number one podcast listeners, I'm all about self-reflection. So, after reflecting about my Am I Hatin', I thought this was a good opportunity to admit that I'm still absolutely fucking right.
That's awesome.
Number one podcast listeners, Clear Piss Gang. What do you think is getting more use? Those public bathrooms y'all have to inevitably visit all the time, or your car cup holders? Or you guys ever think about or imagine if your cabinet of cups had feelings? That cupboard would be mad lonely and probably pretty sad with how little use it is getting. Do y'all even carry cups in your house? I'm just asking, or do you just offer a water bottle to people that come over to your home? Imagine how parched you guys used to be before water bottles were a thing and you just had to leave the house without one before you even knew what it was. Or you only use water bottles when you were doing some sort of physical activity. Do you remember that? No, I didn't think so. Am I hating still? I don't know, but we're going to sound it. Let's mix it, baby.
Petty alert.
This was simply amazing. I think I sent you a note when I heard this this segment. I knew the amount of things, the hate that you were going to get, because it certainly was not meant as a personal attack, but a lot of people took it as a personal attack. And so I just was sitting back, eating my popcorn. Yeah. I myself have a water bottle, but I only take it to work, right? Because I know it's going to be really rare for me to get up and do whatever. And even if I had a water dispenser close by, I'd probably have a larger cup that I would just keep filling up. But because for a variety of different reasons, it was there. What did people do before water bottles? There was this thing that existed. And I don't know if it's still around as much. They were called water fountains. Oh! Water fountains.
Talk about lonely, if those things have feelings.
So water fountains, you probably never see those anymore, even in public parks, right? Because everyone is carrying their fucking water bottle. So I am with you on that. I certainly have a water bottle that I carry. Rarely will I take it anywhere else. If I do take it, it's a 30-minute or longer trip, right? It's something that is there. And if I can't take my water bottle, I will take a Diet Coke. I will take a cup of coffee. I will take a Magic Mind with me.
What it do, baby?
On the road. And it doesn't take up as much space because, let's face it, some of these water bottles don't even fit in your fucking cup holders. So, sorry. I didn't realize how much this was just so much fun just to be able to do that. So I think it's the Bhatt brothers combining forces in doing this. So
hell yeah.
I think the part that I guess mine's not going to be as controversial, because I think most people will be on par with this, is that there are a lot of times where people will FaceTime in public places. And when I say not just on a random park bench that not many people are going to be going nearby, or, whatever, while they're shopping for groceries, or while they're getting ready to order, a meal at a restaurant, like a Chipotle or something, they're FaceTiming someone. What in what area? And it's not, they don't have their AirPods in, they don't have headphones in, they're speakerphone, and you could also sometimes see what they're fucking talking about, but in their battery of individuals that are FaceTiming in these public places is like almost dead. You're like, what? It just doesn't make any sense. So that would be, I think it's not as controversial, but I think what's going to be controversial is that I am co-signing with this water bottle thing, and so I'm just getting ready.
Yeah.
And if your water bottle does fit in your car cup holder, we would love to see that. We would just love to see it. So, when you are sending your hate right back to us at Creme Brulee, let's see some anti. Let's see you reciprocate this what we're talking about here today.
All right. On that note, number one podcast listeners, I wanted to focus in on this section to kind of serve as our NFL preview / mostly fantasy football preview. We did this last year before the season, and I really enjoyed it, Vish. So what I want to do is go division by division.
Cool.
And get your take for the following. Just for you number one podcast listeners following along, this is kind of the order we're going to stick to with each of these. We're going to go division by division. We're going to say our pick to win the division, a fantasy player that's worth the hype, so someone who's rated pretty high that you think is going to live up to it, a fantasy player not worth the hype, more known as like a bust.
Sure.
Someone who's projected high but isn't going to fare as well. A sleeper fantasy breakout, someone not being talked about a little later that you think will do well. And a bonus, if you have one by division, is those of us in dynasty leagues, if you have someone or a deep cut that you think might be useful to someone who's doing maybe just a rookie draft or picking up someone on deep on their depth chart that might be worth something later. So Vish, without further ado, you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to start in the NFC North. Obviously, number one podcast listeners know that's Lions, Vikings, Bears, and Packers. So Vish, take it away. You can go through your picks and for those categories, and let the number one podcast listeners know what you're who you got for the season.
All right, perfect. All right, so pick to win. I'm gonna go with the Lions. I feel like it's a safer choice, and we always end up backtracking sometimes. The fantasy player worth the hype right now, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown. We referenced him earlier. In terms of the fantasy player not worth the hype is going to be Sam Laporta. The tight end for the Lions is someone that I think is going to see a little bit of a downtick in terms of targets and things of that sort. And then a sleeper breakout that I'm saying, and I think this works for Dynasty as well for this person, is Jordan Mason. He's a running back for the Vikings. He's the one that actually took over for a lot of the 49ers individuals that had Christian McCaffrey last year, and so he kind of held down the fort. So,
nice.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I like the Lions as well. Roche and I talked about it in a previous episode. Definitely concerned with them losing both their coordinators, but I like their roster overall, and especially their running back tandem. My fantasy player worth the hype. I also love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Also love Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I think he's super dynamic, and I think he's only better if David Montgomery's able to stay healthy, because it gives him a little bit of relief. It seems like he's their go-to back, obviously, but I think it'll only help things. My pick for not worth the hype, I am going with DJ Moore.
All right.
Because they added so many skill players. I think they added, for example, Colson Loveland and Luther Burton with early picks this year. They added Rome Odunze last year, and I think they're going to really commit to running the ball as well, because they bolstered their offensive line. So I think naturally someone's got to get less targets. And the aforementioned couple names, my kind of breakout is going to be Roma Denze, and my dynasty pick is Colston Loveland. I think Ben Johnson's creative, and he was all for the Sam Laporta pick, so they clearly wanted Loveland over Tyler Warren. They drafted him before Tyler Warren, so I feel like that was for a reason. So that's it's not a super obvious deep pick, but it is a tight end, and those usually go kind of towards the end of dynasty first round, so maybe it's worth looking into. Okay. Vish, over to the NFC East, the Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders. What you got?
I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think it's tough to go against the defending Super Bowl champs, but that's going to be my pick. So I'll let you go first in terms of kind of the fantasy breakdown, and then see if I can add stuff to it, and or disagree. Sure. It might be a little bit easier.
Okay. For my person worth the hype, I wanted to go a little deeper, but I'm going to go with A.J. Brown for worth the hype. And in the same vein, not worth the hype, I think less touches. I'm going with Devontae Smith. My sleeper breakout, he's down the list, but I think he's getting less hype because of a rookie they drafted. I'm going to go with my breakout being Tyrone Tracy Jr. I think he's super versatile for the Giants, and they used him a lot last year. Definitely getting pushed by the drafting of Cam Scatterbo, but I think he's different enough of a style that Tyrone Tracy will still get touches. And then my dynasty pick is someone on the Cowboys, is Jaden Blue, a running back they took late in the draft out of Texas, and I think that backfield's kind of wide open, so he might get a few touches and surprise people, and he's the youngest of that crew, so those are my NFC East ones.
Nice. Yeah. So kind of in the same realm. So one of the fantasy players that I think is worth the hype. I think he's probably quarterback 4 or 5, depending on kind of what platform you use, is going to be Jalen Hurts. So I think we talked a little bit about Saquon, and if he has a level of regression, or even if he has an uptick, Hurts is that tush push is really beneficial in the goal line, especially for fantasy. Where I kind of disagreed a little bit was the fantasy player is not worth the hype is just any running back that's not named Saquon in that division. I think there's a lot of crowded backfields, if you will, and it's really hard to decipher what's going to be what, right? Even I think Jaden Blue with the Cowboys and their rookie is someone that is certainly a great dynasty pick, just because you just don't know what's going to happen, but you don't know what type of running back. It's really hard to pick someone outside of dynasty for that. And then so my sleeper breakout for that is staying with the Cowboys, but it's going to be George Pickens. So I think saying no running backs, don't pick anyone for like the Cowboys or anything, but George Pickens, the Cowboys invested in him. You would think that with Dak hopefully healthy and able to spread the ball around, that between CD and George, that they'll be able to really spread the field and be able to do different things down the field. So,
all right, to the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Bucks, the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers, and the Atlanta Falcons. Who you got, Vish?
For this division, I'm going to go with the Bucks. I think it's safe, even though the NFC South historically has always been up for grabs. I think the Buccaneers really have a solid team throughout. In terms of my fantasy player worth the hype, I think is Bijan Robinson, as he likes to be called.
All right.
So obviously you're going to be picking towards the front of the draft if you're going to be taking him, but I just think with his versatility and what he's been able to do the last few years, it's there. In terms of players not worth the hype, it's just any Saints players. Sorry, Chris Olave, go Bucks. And then kind of the sleeper fantasy breakout and dynasty picks, I think the easy answer is Emeka Egbuka. Go Bucks.
Yeah.
There you go. And then
Bucks,
kind of the outside answer for that is another rookie wide receiver that was actually taken first in that draft class last year, was Tet McMillan with the Panthers.
Yeah.
So I think he's obviously taken, and it seems like he's having a good camp and all of that. So I think dynasty-wise, definitely go with the rookie. Those will go earlier, obviously, with the wide receivers, but those could certainly be sleeper breakouts as well. So what do you think?
Yeah, I really like those picks. I am also picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're the defending division champs the last couple years. They definitely have the best roster on paper. For my player worth the hype, I'm going Drake London. I think with Michael Penix, I think he's going to get a lot of targets. So he's ranked pretty high, and I think people are scared of him a little bit from the last couple years and not utilizing him. I think that'll change. My player not worth the hype is Bucky Irving. I just think the Buccaneers have a lot of weapons, and they're going to start throwing the ball around a lot. But I could be wrong about that. My hunch is that they're going to go air it out a little bit more, and that leads to a little less production for Bucky Irving.
Yep.
I like the obvious pick of Ibuka as a breakout star, especially, unfortunately Jalen McMillan got hurt, and then Chris Godwin's going to start the year recovering from his injury, so that lends itself to Ibuka being basically their second receiver except for Mike Evans. So I think that'll be a lot more targets and a lot more time to get used to Baker Mayfield, who's been raving about Ibuka too. So, and then my dynasty pick, I'm kind of going to go a little deep cut. I know we're talking about the Saints and making fun of them, but maybe a flyer goes in dynasty to Tyler Shuck. If you're a super flex league, a 2-quarterback league, maybe he's someone you consider late.
Yeah.
It's still a QB battle, but it seems like that team is going to be so uncertain. Even if Shuck loses the job to Spencer Rattler, then maybe he sees the field at some point.
Yeah.
Injuries happen, and if you're playing a 2-quarterback league, that might be someone you take a flyer on. So especially with the wide open, a really bad roster, they might just throw the rookie out there. So
yeah, true.
that was my little
I like that,
deep
especially for dynasty
pick. Yeah. Okay. Last but not least in the NFC is the NFC West. Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks, and Niners in the NFC West. So who you got, Vish?
I'm going to go with a pick that I think we all picked last year as well. Is going to be the 49ers. I think they seem like they're finally healthy, even though they've lost a lot of people on the defensive side and even on the offensive side. And then from a fantasy player worth the hype, I'm going to go with the Ram of Kyron Williams. He got his extension that he was looking for, so I think he's going to be the lead back that kind of is in that area. A player not worth the hype for me is going to be a Seahawk, and that's Kenneth Walker. So I think it's just his ability to stay on the field has just been a plague. And I think in terms of a sleeper, is going to be, I think, is a second year, so could potentially be a dynasty pick as well. But I'll give you a rookie after that. But Trey Benson is a sleeper fantasy breakout to me. He's, I think, second behind the depth chart for James Conner, for the Cardinals. And, so if James Conner, seems like starts off pretty strong and he has a great floor, I should say. I think that's what we're looking for. And then in terms of a sleeper, I'll go with the Seahawks, and it's a wide receiver, Torrey Horton. So kind of just on the opposite side as a rookie. Another person, if you're looking for a deep cut, probably not going to be in the first few rounds of a dynasty pick, but certainly later on. So it could be someone worth taking the flyer on. I know he's kind of banged up right now, but someone that hopefully the Seahawks come in there. So what about you?
For the NFC West, I'm going with the Rams for the pick to win it. My worth the hype person is Puka Nacua.
Okay.
I don't think Devontae Adams' arrival is going to steal targets from him. I think they're good complementary receivers. Roche and I talked about that a little bit. So I like Puka there. I also had the same not worth the hype person in Kenneth Walker. It's who I first went to because I just don't know what the Seahawks team's going to look like.
Yep.
They're going to have Sam Darnold. I think they're going to want to throw the ball with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. And it just feels like Kenneth Walker hasn't necessarily stayed healthy. He's in, I believe, the last year of his contract as well. So I don't know how that plays out in the back. My breakout star, kind of only one way to go from here, is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think they're going to focus on getting him the ball. He's the clear wide receiver one. I'm hopefully willing it into existence here a little bit. And then my dynasty pick that I was considering is Elijah Arroyo, tight end. He has a lot of upside, and I think he could be a flyer maybe in a couple years. So anyway, that wraps up the NFC. Vish, over to the AFC, and we are going to start with the AFC North, the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, and Bengals. So who you got for, just a reminder, since we're switching over to AFC, we're doing pick to win the division, fantasy player worth the hype, fantasy player not worth the hype, a sleeper fantasy breakout person, and a bonus if you have one is a dynasty pick. So Vish, take it away, AFC North.
All right, AFC North, I think I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think the Bengals will give them a run for their money, potentially, and so will the Steelers. They'll kind of hover around it, and then I think obviously that anchors around Aaron Rodgers and his ability to command that Arthur Smith offense, if you will. In terms of a fantasy player worth the hype, I think he's going probably a little too late in some ADPs and different things, but Chase Brown with the Bengals, I think he really came on as of late. Last year kind of took the bull by its horns, took advantage of Zach Moss getting hurt for the Bengals, and I think he kind of has another breakout year, so he's worth the hype. In terms of a player not worth the hype, this could go for any Ravens wideout, but I'm just going to say Zay Flowers. And then in terms of a sleeper fantasy breakout, is we talked a lot about the Seahawks in the previous division, but now he's with the Steelers in the AFC North, is DK Metcalf. Primary target for Aaron Rodgers. He loves those big receivers, goal line target as well. So I think he gets a good run for his money. And then from a dynasty area, he's probably going a little too soon. Interesting to see how it fleshes out. But Caleb Johnson, running back rookie for the Steelers. So,
okay. I'm also going with the Ravens to win the division. My worth the hype person is Lamar Jackson. I feel like he is one of the most important fantasy players to have because a lot of those guys that we think take dips are because of Lamar Jackson touching the ball so much. So my not worth the hype, I think, because not necessarily their lack of commitment to the run, but more so with splitting carries and not knowing who it's going to go to, is the Steelers running backs. Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson. I'm just not sure if you're looking for immediate production, I know who to go with there. So that's who I'm going with, not worth the hype. My kind of breakout, which isn't necessarily fair because he's still had productive seasons, is David Njoku, because he's done historically really well with Joe Flacco playing quarterback. So that's kind of where I'm going with that one. And I like that move in productivity at Njoku, especially if you're in a league where tight ends go early and it's so top heavy. Maybe he's that next tier to get your hands on that might hit. And then my deeper cut one, if you haven't had your rookie draft yet, he just signed with them, but is Isaiah Bond. He was just cleared from legal issues. He signed with the Browns. He would have been essentially like a second round draft pick out of Texas this past draft. So he drafted as a free agent. I think he has a good shot to, I mean, he's obviously going to have to learn the playbook, but that skill group is wide open. So he would have every reason to get touches. That's my little deep cut. If you've already had your rookie draft. I'm sure he's going to be heavily bid on if he's not already in the waiver wire, or whoever is doing the waiver wire and was first priority might have already scooped him up. But if you haven't had that draft yet and it's still that rookie group, he might be a deep cut for you. Okay, over to the AFC East. Vish, the Bills, Jets, Patriots, and Dolphins. Who you got?
So I'm going to go with the Bills here. I think a lot of people are feeling the Patriots and then coming off. I think now with the coach, you never know, but I'm still going Buffalo. In terms of the player worth the hype, Josh Allen, I think he's going to be the QB number one. He's been pretty consistent, knock on wood, for those that are going to be drafting him or about to draft him. And then it doesn't really matter from like a Jets perspective, but so that we can be a little more objective, I'm going to say Garrett Wilson.
Okay.
Sorry, buddy. Still go Bucks.
Yeah.
In terms of the fantasy player not worth the hype, I think even though he has a quarterback now, Justin Fields, who they have a good rapport with, historically, Justin Fields, especially in fantasy football, great fantasy quarterback, by the way, just not great from a passing perspective. So in sleeper fantasy breakouts, I think the easy answer for me is Travion Henderson. I think that's been the consensus kind of across a lot of different platforms. So, and then my outside answer is going to be someone that probably hasn't been, it's not worth the hype or not, super high on draft picks like he was in the past years. But I think Jalen Waddle, I think if Tyreek ends up falling off and losing a step in his speed, I think he's a great possession receiver. And then from a dynasty perspective, we talked a little bit about the Patriots, but Kyle Williams, obviously Travion Henderson is going to be one of the top picks that is going to go pretty quickly in dynasty drafts. So certainly you want to try to get him. But Kyle Williams is a wide receiver for the Patriots, and so worth definitely a flyer for later on. So what do you think?
I like that. To win the division, I like the Bills, and my worth the hype person is also Josh Allen. I don't think there's any reason to be cute with this answer. He, like Lamar Jackson, those feel like the two most consequential fantasy players, assuming good health, which is what we want. My not worth the hype, I'm sticking with the Jets, but over another position group is Breece Hall. I just
good choice.
He's drafted he's slotting kind of high, and I just don't know what that team's going to look like. And also Justin Fields is going to run quite a bit too. They also like their depth pieces. So anyway, I like your pick also for breakout star. Travion Henderson seems really dynamic this preseason, and he had every opportunity to get the ball in New England. So I like him. He's going to be a popular pick, like you said. So I like the Kyle Williams pick, but I'm going with Henderson. And on that note, let's move over to a special division to you, the AFC South, the Texans, Titans, Jags, and Colts. So who you got, Vish?
Well, I'm going to choose the Texans, knock on wood here, to win the division. I think the fantasy player worth the hype is Nico Collins. I think there's certainly, with some of the injuries, and they even traded away some of their veterans, they did add Christian Kirk, but I think Nico Collins is by far Stroud's favorite weapon. And then I'm going to say, in terms of any player not worth the hype, and this is more just stay away, I think is kind of what I'm thinking, is anyone not named Jonathan Taylor, just stay away from any running back in that division. It's just a crowded backfield, including the Texans. Mixon is one of those players kind of like that's been battling an injury, and we don't know when he's going to be coming back. In terms of a sleeper fantasy breakout, I think that's going to be Cam Ward.
Okay.
I think it's something where they're going to be experimenting a lot. He does have the run capability to open it up, so we'll see what ends up happening. I think beyond, in terms of dynasty picks, Certainly the easy answer is going to be any of the Texans wide receivers, any of the Jalens, or the Jadens, or the Higgins or Jalen Noel that they drafted from Iowa State. But I'm going to go with a Titans wide receiver.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm saying his name right, so this is always a precursor, but Alec Aomayor with the Titans. So rookie wide receiver. I'm looking for some of the dynasty deep finds, if you will, where you want to try to take a flyer on some of these players that might end up developing a relationship with their rookie quarterback.
Sure.
Yeah, what do you think here?
Yeah, I also like the Texans to win the AFC South. Knock on wood for your guys' sake, obviously. Again, like you, I don't think there's any reason to not go with the obvious. I like Nico Collins as the player I expect to live up to things, because him and CJ Stroud do have a really good rapport, and the rest of the wide receiver room's all new. I know it's not new at this point, but he does have a rapport, Nico Collins. I kind of liked your theme with the not worth the hype, but I'm going with the Colts wide receivers. From a fantasy standpoint, I don't know who you'd pinpoint out of those group, and they added someone like Tyler Warren. I think they're going to focus on running with Jonathan Taylor, and they had a QB battle that for the ages between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. So a QB battle nobody wanted. That's where I'm going with not worth the hype. Not that any of them have major hype, but I tend to not really trust any of them. And I like your Cam Ward pick for breakout star. I think he's going to have every opportunity. He's got experienced receivers to throw to, which I think is an underrated
that's
duo. They got Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett, and they're pretty dependable guys. So I think that bodes well. And Tony Pollard is hurt a lot, but if he can stay healthy, he's a decent running back in the backfield to complement him too. So he'll have every opportunity to, and obviously it bodes well because he's the number one overall pick. So I also had here, like you mentioned, the Texans wide receivers 2 to 3, whichever one of the two rookies, and then also Christian Kirk, who's largely been forgotten over the couple years, but I think he stands to benefit from the attention Nico Collins gets, and I kind of like that role of flying under the radar. And I think Christian Kirk, if he can stay healthy, which he's had bad luck with, it's kind of a fresh start for him with a good quarterback. So I kind of like that as like a deep cut. So he's more of my pick, but I like the rookies if you're thinking dynasty, if we're addressing that question too. Okay. Last but not least, Vish, the AFC West, the Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, and Chargers. Who you got?
I feel like it's hard to pick against the Chiefs, even though I feel like a lot of people like the Broncos and their team and with Sean Payton, but Chiefs is going to be my pick to win the division. From a fantasy player worth the hype, I kind of put 2 rookies on here just because I think they're drafted first, second rounds. So they're not necessarily dynasty players unless you're picking kind of first or early on. But it's Omarion Hampton with the Chargers, and then Ashton Genty with the Raiders. And so they were both rookie running backs, kind of top tier, and we've talked about the running backs that have come on late, and I think running backs sometimes, especially for dynasty, if you hit on them, they're golden, at least for a few years. In that same breath, staying with the Chargers, the player not worth the hype is Ladd McConkey. Okay. So this actually surprised me when I was kind of looking at it and where Ladd's going. I certainly wouldn't be shying away from him, but I just think that with my sleeper fantasy breakout of Keenan Allen, he had a pretty solid last year with the Bears, and now he's back with the Chargers. So it kind of goes one and the same for me around that. And then if we're looking for a really deep cut, no idea if he's going to pan out or not, but the Chiefs just traded away the Sky Moore, who had a total of 3 targets last year, which means 0 catches, so it wasn't a huge trade by any means, but they have a rookie wide receiver, Jalen Royals. If you're thinking kind of long term and seeing if something happens, if Rashee Rice ends up getting suspended even mid-year, it's kind of a weird situation to try to draft Rashee Rice, even though he won't be suspended for the first 4 games, 3-4 games or whatever it might be. So I think it's worth taking a flyer here. So,
Love that.
What do you think here?
Love that. Okay, so I also have the Chiefs winning. I think the popular kind of deep cut pick is the Broncos because they had a breakout season last year and they have all their players back. Bo Nix overachieved, that sort of thing. I think this is the perfect year to just know that the Chiefs are inevitable, just like you said. My fantasy player worth the hype, I think, is Brock Bowers. He gets so many targets, and it's such an easy person to hit. I know he has a new quarterback in Geno Smith, but it seems like a tight end like that would be a quarterback's best friend. My not worth the hype, I know you said he has good value, but is the Chargers running backs, and it's kind of the same thing I've gotten at earlier. They drafted Amari and Hampton like you talked about, but they also have Najee Harris. So from a fantasy standpoint, who do you go with, and are you going to be disappointed if you take one of those? Mostly it's Omari and Hampton that you'd be taking early. Are you going to be disappointed that he's not going to get touches as a rookie?
Right.
They're going to get every opportunity because it's a Harbaugh team. That cheater Harbaugh. But, talk about that later. My player that is... So that's my player not worth the hype. My sleeper pick, I think he's fallen under the radar. Maybe this isn't quite a pick, but same kind of lines. But Xavier Worthy, I think he's going to get used a lot more. So I really like that pick. I think another couple that I have is my one not getting talked about a lot is two guys that were added this offseason on the Broncos, J.K. Dobbins and Evan Ingram. And I think...
Oh, yeah. That's Evan Ingram's a good
I think
pick,
they're kind of under... They weren't necessarily under the radar, but I think they're going to get some touches. So I like those two as like a more of a deep value, a traditional sense. Xavier Worthy's kind of in like the 30 to 50 range, so maybe that's a little bit of a cop-out, but I do like him in terms of all the other shit that's going on with the Chiefs. So a couple picks for that. And and my along the same lines as I was just talking about not believing the Broncos winning the thing, but as for a deeper pick for sleeper value, I like RJ Harvey. Despite me loving Dobbins, go Bucks, he is only signed for like a year, so RJ Harvey seems like one that would be good for the future for them. So that's my deeper cut ones for the AFC West. And that wraps up like our division by division breakdown. Vish, did you have anything to add fantasy related for who you got in our special?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to pose something, and this might be coming out of left field a little bit, but I didn't mention this individual in the NFC South, but I wanted to have a special category, and I call it the Kyle Pitts category. Okay? So the Kyle Pitts category is who is a player you will regret taking as soon as you select him. Like, oh, I just sent in my pick, and why did I do that? And you're like, fuck, I just had to. So I want to hear what you think about this. Obviously, Kyle Pitts is.
Can I say Kyle
named
Pitts
after
this?
him?
Yeah.
So you certainly can, but the category is named after him. So I wanted you to think about someone where you're like, crap. And it could be someone we talked about already, but I just wanted to make sure.
I do have one actually.
We talked a little bit about.
I do have one. I think I got a couple candidates here. All right. My first one is Alvin Kamara. I think.
Oh, I like that.
I think he's gonna be like a pick. You're gonna be like, well, who else are they gonna give it to? And I think they're gonna be so bad that he's gonna get like all the attention's gonna get put on him, so it's gonna suck for him. So I think I'm gonna regret that as I'm looking through like the top players list. The other one I feel like I would regret taking is Kyron Williams. Because he's not like a shiny pick, sexy pick.
Yeah, he's not a
But
sexy
then
pick. Yeah.
they could easily, like Sean McVay could have a game where they barely run the ball, and they have Puka and Devontae Adams. So those are kind of my two. And then my third candidate is also someone you mentioned earlier, but I feel like he has potential to be regretted, is DK Metcalf, because I just worry that the Steelers are going to commit hard to the run, and then Aaron Rodgers had trouble getting the ball to certain players with the Jets with good receivers, so I'm just worried that it's going to be some of the same. So those are my candidates of regret. Those are the first ones that came to mind. What about you, Vish?
Yeah. I think Kenneth Walker, who we talked about a little bit, is going to be my take, just because you just don't know. I mean, when he's healthy, great type of picks, but someone that you just instantly regret. And I also feel like there's going to be a few. I love the ability for Alvin Kamara, but I'll also say like Aaron Jones is another one. And then we talked about Travion Henderson and why he's moving up draft boards and all of that, even though they haven't come out with the depth chart. But Ramondre Stevenson is the other person that I would just regret taking. Yes. And I feel like that goes with any Patriots running backs. So there's a few players in this. Kyle Pitts, and if we wanted to go with like a tight end of who we regret, as soon as we take them, for me, I think that's going to be Mark Andrews.
Yes,
so
love that
is one of those where you're just like, yeah, you're like, oh, this could be great, or it could just blow up in my face. So
yep. Yeah, in honor of his namesake, I like the Mark Andrews pick for sure. It was named after a tight end, so it's only right that we add it. But
yeah, for
love
sure.
that category. That's going to have to be a permanent one for next year too. All right, Vish.
There you go.
Let's go to what you feeling. Vish, what are you feeling lately?
So this is probably alongside you.
Yeah.
You'll probably, I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but we were able to see clips in Cleveland. Yep. So Namdi, who has hosted Prem Brulee before as well, came up, and we had a great time. And so we were able to see clips in Cleveland, which was awesome. We had a really awesome, it was so fulfilling as well. Yeah. But then also being able to hang out with you and Naeem and with Calvin before the concert was awesome. And then kind of what I've been watching, it's not, it might hit differently, but I'm not all the way through it. But the new Cowboys documentary on Netflix, 3 episodes in, and it's the first episode starts out pretty slow, but it's really starting to pick up, and I can see how it's getting some rave reviews. So
yes, totally agree with both of those.
For sure.
I'm definitely feeling getting to see clips in concert. It was a concert bucket list. Got to see it with you, who got me into clips, which was very cool. Love getting to go to concerts with you, and yes, hanging out with Namdi and you, and then also getting time with my nephew Calvin beforehand was awesome. We, Roche and I last episode we were talking about, energy filling type of days. That was one of them. Yeah. So
cool.
That was awesome. Also, my son Barrett started preschool, which is crazy, so I'm feeling that.
Look at that. Yeah, let's go.
If you're a parent, not necessarily feeling it as in your own feels as a parent, because time moves so quick, but excited for him, so that's what that's for. So I'm also 3 parts through the Cowboys documentary. I figure I might as well enjoy the last time they'll ever be good, so I'm kind of embracing the documentary. So a lot of it's hard because we were alive for the parts, but we wouldn't really remember it's a lot of that. So it's cool to see the inside stories, because I've obviously, as an alleged fan, have read a lot about those dynasties and seen a lot about them. So a lot of it was confirmation that, what I read about earlier in my life was true, but it's getting more details to that. So that part is very fun to me, and adding more context to what I've researched in the past. So anyway,
and also adding on, you got an experienced porch rocker as well.
Very cool
so for those that are so in one of our neighborhoods in Akron, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's not people in their rocking chairs on porches. It's literally bands playing on people's porches in neighborhoods with vendors lined up, food. There's a kids zone, certainly, which Calvin was which partaked in, but it is just a really cool event that has blossomed into this huge thing. So really neat. I know a lot of different communities have that, but I know Akron has really made it a special thing. And cool. There's certainly a main stage and a beer garden and all that with bigger local bands, if you will, but with individuals actually playing music on people's
porches,
actual porches is pretty sweet. So
very cool event. Yeah, shout out Highland Square in Akron. That's a very cool event.
Yep.
That has, what you told me, grown over the years. It is very grand in scale. Cool to walk around a neighborhood and have that sense of community, and very unique event. So that was cool to see.
I think they estimated like 25,000 people were down there.
Insane. It sounds about right with how long it took to park, but
it's true. As long as it's taken.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing for the community and very cool for that neighborhood. So awesome to see and see it through Calvin's eyes too, and get to play with them and stop by some local vendors and support them. That's always cool too. So yes,
100%.
That was a fun day and cool to check off something off a concert bucket list, which I never thought would happen. Seeing clips, seeing them perform classics along with their new classic album that just came out. It's very cool.
Yep, they did a really good job with their set list.
Yes, so everything you'd want it to be. So if you're considering seeing them in concert, if they come to your town, I highly recommend it. Clips it's pure hip hop, and I loved every second of it. So great time. Okay, number one podcast listeners, you know how we like to wrap up each episode. Let's hit that too much sense. Enter that intro. Okay. My too much sense for this episode, number one podcast listeners, is this PSA. As a friend, I am never tired of your life. I saw this post. I don't know who to give it credit to, but I loved it. As a friend, I'm never tired of your life. I hate when my friends say, I don't want to keep bothering you with the same issue. If it weighs on your chest every day, spill. Call me, text me. Use your people around you. I'm such a fan of this. I never get tired of helping people. Your friends are there for you for a reason. And I think too often we try to tackle things by ourselves or don't want to burden people with it. But if you would just ask your friends how they would think, they would tell you quite the opposite. If you would put yourself in the reverse, if a friend had a problem and you found out about it and they didn't come to you, you would say, it wouldn't have been anything for you to talk to me about it. So it takes very little effort to help someone. It's fulfilling. We're talking about energy fulfilling things. I love helping people. Maybe some don't out there, and it is a guarded thing, which I respect. But if you number one podcast listeners are listening out there, I don't get tired of it. I'll speak for myself, but I'm pretty safe to say that a lot of your friends would feel the same way about you because you matter to them. So use the people around you when something comes up.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it goes also with, sometimes where you might just be looking to vent too, right? So text, call, and spill your guts and say, hey, I don't really need a resolution. I just need to get this off my chest. And sometimes that does exactly what you want it to do, because you're saying something out loud rather than internalizing it. And I think when you internalize something, it just keeps building until it finally explodes. And you don't really like that. I like as a friend, I'm never tired of your life. That's an awesome little.
It's nice to put it like that. I think it
mantra.
could catch someone off guard because they're just thinking of it in terms of the actual problem, but it is a part of your life, what you're going through. So anyway, speaking of never tired, don't be, and get yourself some Magic Mind. This is my reminder to you, magicmind.com/prem. Enter the code PREM20. Don't play yourself, number one podcast listeners. Don't play yourself by keeping it internal. And I'm not playing myself by keeping this Magic Mind idea to myself. So go get you some. magicmind.com/prem. Enter the code PREM20. And with that, you number one podcast listeners, that does it for a brand new episode of the number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee. This has been our little fantasy football preview edition of Prem Brulee featuring my co-host Vish. Big bro, thank you for joining me on this.
Of course,
edition.
anytime.
Number one podcast listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for your feedback and your notes and your interactions online. I truly, truly appreciate it. I try to tell people all the time how much it means to me to hear from you about episodes. It never gets old. It is main reason for doing this and enjoying to do this. So I'm so glad that you enjoy it. Please keep it coming. Please share the episode. Tell people about it. It is so greatly appreciated. I can't thank you enough for the support, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you.
Stay hydrated, fam.
For your piss gang.
Peace.